I guess it's worth it for me to explain why I'm so passionate and angry sounding all the time in my videos and in my own life. I guess it's three major reasons. Two of them I think are very personal that I didn't know if I should even get into on this channel. One of them is that I had a very serious car accident when I was a teenager. And I was hit by an SUV on my bike. I was not wearing a helmet, and he hit me at about 35 miles an hour. He bent the frame on my bike. He drained the marrow from my hip. And my face ended up going through his windshield. And then he hit his brakes. And so I ended up rolling back out onto the asphalt, roughly 8 or 10 feet. And it ripped a large portion of my forehead and the flesh around my right eye away. And so I had to have skin grafted from my back. There's cadaver bone in my hip. And I have a lot of chronic pain, but I also have a lot of damage to my frontal cortex and my hippocampus that controls your emotional responses. So I think a large part of it is that. And the second part of it is that the men in my family don't typically last very long. Like on my dad's side of the family, my dad passed away when I was 6 years old of a very rare form of kidney cancer, where that like kind of wrapped around his abdominal aorta and choked off his lower intestine very quickly. He went from healthy to dead in 5 weeks. And they think it's because he worked at a plant that refined coal. And he worked there for many, many years, so that's probably what it is. I don't want to act like I have any sort of like genetic curse or something like that, but his father before him also died of a very rare form of cancer in his 40s. And so if I'm 34 now and I only have like 10 more years on this planet, given, as they say, is or likely, then I don't want to spend them in a sort of like shithole where I felt like I could have made a greater difference or a greater impact. Even by reaching a few people with my ideas, and even by getting those ideas out there and connecting those ideas with a few like-minded people, and those people can integrate my ideas into their worldview, hopefully, then I've done my job. I feel like I've left a bit of a legacy. And I've made the world a slightly better place going forward should reincarnation be a thing. I'm hoping it is, because during my accident experience, I had a very significant out-of-body experience that I'm sure the James Randi skeptic crowd and like the Penn and Teller crowd are just itching to take away from me. Because they just can't stand any hope given from a memory like that or an experience like that. They just have to dissect it and be like, no, you're wrong. It was your brain chemistry, and it was, your consciousness slipping into your reptile brain before you passed out, kind of shit. And like, yeah. But this time it was more like my consciousness was encapsulated in a fishbowl. And that fishbowl was more like a disco ball where I could see everything instead of just what your eyes would see. And I saw myself in sort of Matrix-like bullet time being hit by the car. And it was well before the Matrix had come out. So I had no way of describing or explaining that experience. And it was very, very, very real to me in that moment, where time had stopped and I could see my body being racked by the car. And I'm like, oh my God, that's me. So that's one experience I've had in my life where it has a definite duality, where there's a definite up and down to it, where I have the chronic pain and the brain damage and the fallout, but I also had that out-of-body experience that totally changed my view of consciousness and the universe, and put me on this path that I'm on now. So it definitely brought me here. It definitely brought me to where I want to affect a positive change in the world. So hopefully this explains why I'm always so, like, I don't know, angry, crabby, passionate, I like to say. And it gives you a bit more of a personal perspective on me. So Take care, everyone. Have a good night.